I'm
Hey,
Kevin Jacobsen of Gold Derby here with Jabari Banks, who stars as Will Smith in Bel-Air, the reboot reimagining of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
yes,
And I'm
yes.
I'm sure you get asked about your relationship to Fresh Prince quite a bit. And I know you're a fan, but what do you think it was that sort of made that original show so special and so unique, or at least how does it resonate with you?
Honestly, it felt like a mirror. And it was something that it was actually my first time recognizing what entertainment was when I was watching The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and it was easily recognizable because I related to Will and my upbringing was very familiar with his, and so I really felt like Will watching that show, and so it really stuck with me throughout my life and shaped how I move throughout the world and how I think and interact. I think, yeah,
hmm Well,
yeah.
I don't know how many people know this, but this is your first on-screen acting role, and these are very iconic shoes to fill.
Right.
I'm curious what kind of nerves you might have had when you were maybe pursuing the role, and if you did, what it was that sort of made you push that kind of doubt aside and just go for it anyway.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know, but I was really steamrolled throughout this process. So I got the role, and 2 days later, I was in LA for the first time doing fittings and screen tests and chemistry tests, and it was my first time in front of like a 30-person camera crew, and I was like, "What did I get myself into?" You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I had a great talk with the show's developer and creator Morgan Cooper, and he just reminded me that they chose me for me and for what I bring to the screen and for what the energy that I bring into the room. And I really had to lean onto my instincts and my upbringing in order to really buckle down and just do the work. You know what I mean? Because after a week after that, I was back in Philly filming the pilot. So it was about 8 days. And we were filming since I had gotten cast. And I was like, okay, first time as number one on this show, you know what I mean? Lead, what do I do? And I just really had to lean on what I knew. And they really encouraged that. And Morgan Cooper that's really my big bro, and he really encouraged me, and he really highlights our superpowers. He always talks about our superpowers and how each individual cast member and player, an ensemble player of this show has a superpower, and they love to highlight that. So it was great working with them, and I had a great support system.
Yeah, well, let's dive into that a little bit. When it comes to actually inhabiting this character, what was the balance there between having some of those classic sort of Will mannerisms, maybe that you remember from the show, if you had any of that in mind, versus
Yeah.
just finding your own vibe for the character?
I knew I couldn't do a, a complete, uh, I
Impression.
couldn't, I
Yeah.
couldn't, yeah, I couldn't be Will. You know what I mean? No
Yeah.
one can really do that again. I didn't want to do any sort of, reenacting of what he did, or I had to bring my own energy. But I definitely did want to hit the mannerisms, some of the mannerisms that he had in the original, and so that's what I sought out to do. But bring my own flavor to this character. And so I knew that the Fresh Prince was like lightning in a bottle. You know what I mean? We can't really
Yeah.
recreate that again, and so I recognized that, and I had to bring myself to this role as much as I could, and let the audience do the rest. you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Could you maybe break down some of the specifics of what you feel like you were able to bring just from your own persona?
Yeah, for sure. My own specific charisma. I feel like me and Will have similar charismas, but it's very different in certain ways. I feel like the temperament of our characters are very different. We're living in a very different time, and I wouldn't mind to be very raw and to be very authentic. And so, I just constantly was thinking about how would a 16-year-old kid from Philly feel about this situation, a 16-year-old kid from Philly feel about that situation, because I know so many 16-year-old kids from Philly. You know what I mean? And so I just drew from that, and I think that's definitely some of the differences that we see between the original and my take on the character.
Yeah. Well, I do want to talk about that West Philly factor with
Yeah,
you also being from there. I'm curious
right.
if you had any perspective maybe on what is the kind of X factor of that kind of that specific energy that is sort of distinct that you felt like you could bring to the role just from having lived that experience.
Yeah, it's just like go-getters, hard workers. And it's a specific personality and a specific point of view about the world, a specific pride being from that city. And people from Philly will tell you, you don't really want to mess with like Philly fans, you know what I mean? People don't mess with Philly fans, you know what I mean? Because Philly is such a specific, we have a specific grit and a specific, love for the city. And so I definitely wanted to bring that into the role. I remember we were filming on 60th and Market, right? And that's like in the heart of West Philly, and we shut down the road, right? And like the L train is going over us, and like the city is all there. Everybody's there. There's a guy with a boombox like Will Smith. I'm from West Philadelphia, like Will Smith, like playing songs. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. What did I get myself into? But it is a very specific energy in that city. And so I had to bring that to the role. Just as far as, my mannerisms, my lingo, the way I walk, the way I go about how I interact with different characters. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the key character traits with Will is that he is very adaptable, and even if it takes him a little bit to really adapt to the whole, the school situation and everything, he really does end up sort of making Bel-Air into his home in a way over the course of this season. So I'm wondering, now having played him,
he's so boisterous. He's so boisterous.
Yes,
He just fills a room, and so you have no choice but to look at him when he walks in.
Yeah. Well, what do you think it is about him that sort of allows him to really get along with people and just sort of find his people in basically any situation?
Yeah, I feel like he has no choice. He had no choice. He had to adapt. And I think coming from Philly, he already learned how to do that in different situations. It's like, you can't act the same way. I mean, you can, but it's specific. You have to be a chameleon of some sorts, you know what I mean? When you're dealing with different people. So when he goes to South Philly, he's a different type of, okay, this is the energy, okay, cool. And he brings his own energy as well, but he has to recognize the energies that's around him. And so when he goes to Bel-Air, he realizes that it's a whole different world. And so he has to learn to adapt. And I think that's definitely one of his best traits. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did want to delve into just your castmates and the relationships that he has, with Carlton, Ali Charlatan.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of the conflict stems from, is this rivalry with the two of them. And yes. I would say it's quite a bit darker what Carlton is going through in this series than the original. But I'm wondering if the two of you just spent any time together to really talk about that dynamic and your characters, or if you just sort of dove in and just figured it out on the spot.
No, we definitely, it was a little bit of both. It was diving into who we were as people, as humans, and really developing the relationship to be able to have that chemistry on screen. That is something that I feel is extremely important as an artist in general, is to just develop relationships with people first, because that's what we are, you know what I mean? Before we're artists, we're just humans. And so developing that relationship so that we can get that chemistry on screen, because the dynamic between Will and Carlton is so specific, it's all about perspective between them, and so we definitely did the work of, just getting down to the nitty gritty of who these characters are and why they don't specifically mix in each situation. And, they have to learn to adapt to live with each other, coexist under this one roof. And it takes them a bit of time, but that was definitely one of my favorite dynamics to play on screen.
And then with Cassandra Freeman and Adrian Holmes, Aunt Viv and Uncle Phil, what did they maybe give you as actors? They've been in the business for a little bit now, just to help you maybe, or sort of figuring out those relationships.
They are the true matriarch and patriarch of the series and of the set in general. It was like working with Adrian on this very specific scene in episode 1, where we're in the foyer, or the foyer, excuse me, or something like how do you pronounce it? And he's telling me, like, stay in Bel-Air and I will give you every opportunity to create the future that you want. And that scene was one of the first emotional scenes that I had on screen. And it was dope because Adrian just gave me the space. He just gave me the space and the time to create as an artist to get there. And I felt that was very important. And we carry that energy throughout. Everyone really leans on each other and everyone wants to see everyone win. And we're all so supportive, even when we're not even on camera, It's like, and so that was I keep that experience near and dear to my heart. But both of them are vets for sure. And I learned so much from them.
I actually also wanted to touch on the locations, especially the mansion,
Yeah,
which is just huge. And it feels like each
massive.
episode, it
Yeah,
seems like each episode we're like seeing a different room on that thing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
can you talk about just the physical space and just the environment that you're in, and whether you found that anything there maybe helped you in your performance, just in terms of like taking in all this space?
It was very real. It was very, very real for me because that was my first time being in a mansion like that. And so
Yeah.
I'm Will in that situation. It's like half Will, half Jabari. Because as soon as they, it's like I wish that they would start rolling as soon as we went on the set, because that's the realest my face has ever been. I'm like, wow, my face is dropped, and like I just have to mimic that every time they say action. But yeah, it's very real for me. And so some of the sites that I was seeing as we were filming was so beautiful. Like Mulholland Drive is my first time up there, looking over the city. It's incredible, and so the locations were definitely an impact on how I approached the character, for sure.
Yeah.
Because it was Will's
Well,
first
just
time, it was Jabari's.
right.
Yeah.
But just diving into like the bigger storyline of this season, I think it's, Will's relationship with his father,
Mhm.
who he hasn't seen in years. And that really comes to a head in the finale in this
Yeah.
very explosive way. I
Mhm.
would imagine that finale maybe was more of a challenge than other episodes in terms of really trying to carry that dramatic weight.
Yeah.
So how much was that sort of a different process for preparing for the finale and that confrontation, and comparing that to what you'd done before?
We knew that the finale and the content of it would resonate with a lot of people. And we ended up going through a lot of difficulty and tribulation before, due to COVID, time, the premiere. A lot of people don't know, but we were still filming after the premiere had aired. We had done the premiere, and so there was a lot of work to be done. And I knew that scene, that specific energy, and that specific we needed to take time with that, and we did. And they gave us the time to create. And working with Marlon was a dream of mine. And he's so dope. He's so dope. And I think what we created is raw and real, and it's visceral, for sure.
Very much so. Yeah. Well, now that the show's come out, the first season's aired,
Yeah.
people are watching the show and responding to it. I'm
Mhm.
curious, how much do you feel like this experience of basically being thrust into the spotlight here is
Yeah.
also basically just mirroring Will's journey, the character of Will in this
Right.
case, and
Right. Yeah.
sort of like adapting to this new normal?
Yeah. What is that? Sorry, what's the question?
Just how much do you feel like there is that sort of real life connection for you, Jabari,
Oh yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
like really having to adjust to all this now, like Will
Oh,
is?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It can be a lot sometimes, but you take it day by day. And Will has something great that he says in his memoir, Will. And he
Yeah.
says it's just a lesson, but just brick by brick. And we focus on one brick at a time, and laying that brick perfectly. And so each day I just focus on doing one thing as best as I can. And that's the only thing I can focus on, because there's so much. It's like I'm in the eye of the tornado, It's like there's so much working around me. And so I definitely have to just focus on what I do best. And provide and being that provide that energy for the rest of the people around me that are leaning on me, and that I lean on as well. And I'm so grateful to be in this position. I'll never take it for granted.
Yeah, I think that's a very healthy attitude to have here.
Thanks.
And just sort of going into this second season, which is in the works, have you
Yeah.
thought at all about what might be next for Will now after that big confrontation moment? Have you thought about sort of where he goes from here?
Yeah, I think we are very, very excited to explore more of LA, and to see the different sides of LA, and for Will to do the same, for Will to go back to his roots in certain ways, and to explore his relationship with his father a little more, and explore the dynamics between Will and his family, and what that looks like now that things have shifted. So yeah, I'm excited for all of that, and it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of adventure in season 2. Yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Well, congrats on this sort of great debut performance from you. Can't wait to see what might be next down the pike in addition to Bel-Air.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. Yeah,
yeah,
much on the way.
yeah. Well, for those of you watching, subscribe for more interviews and go to goldderby.com to make your Emmy predictions. Thank you so much, Jabari.
Thank you.